Basta't lahat tayo ay sama-sama. Habang may panahon, maganda ngayon tayo'y aahon. Maging ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas. Maging panatag, Pilipinas. Maging panatag, Pilipinas. Maging panatag, Pilipinas. Kahandaan ang susi sa kaligtasan, kaalaman ng kailangan ng mamamayan. Buhay ang katapat, iwasang mapahamak, tulong-tulong sa ngalan ng bayan. Habang may panahon, maganda ngayon tayo'y ahon. Maging ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas. 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 Maging ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas.
Being here, participating actively, is a manifestation that you, your LGU, your agency or organization care so much for our people and our Filipino nation. Consider yourselves lucky to be part of this moment today.
We are proud to share that this automated planning tool for disaster recovery and reconstruction is the first of its kind regionally and globally. Developed by the national government with support from the World Bank, the Plan Smart app aims to help decision makers speed up the disaster rehabilitation and recovery planning process, allocate resources, and ensure resilient recovery in affected communities.
Pasig City is prone to flooding. Marami kasing mababang lugar sa Pasig City. Since ang fault line is dumadaan din sa Pasig City, prone din po siya sa earthquake. Our LGU decided to join the training program because we want to explore yung different available platforms that will help our city formulate our plans efficiently and effectively.
Para sa akin, yung natutunan ko dito sa training is very friendly, user-friendly, effective at efficient. Basta importante lang is yung data is available saka updated para maka-response yung mga part ng sa regions at sa LGU.
For me, hindi naman kasi ako teching person. Pero nung nasubukan ko to, nakuha niya yung attention ko dahil magaling yung mga nagtuturo sa application, paano simulan, paano gawin yung application na to. As of now, nakukuha ko siya unti-unti.
So right now, we are exploring yung mga pwedeng magawa nitong Plan Smart na web-based application. So far, kami ay natutuwa kasi madali naming i-input at na-pag-generate ng mga datas. So real-time output din, no? Hindi na yung ikaw pa mismo yung manual yung nagko-compute. And very comprehensive lahat ng aming datas na nakukuha dito.
Maganda tong Plan Smart kasi dito nakita namin yung mga hazard-prone area ng Caloocan, pati kung saan kami pwedeng maglagay ng strategic location para mapabilis yung response ng Caloocan, ng LGU.
Since mas mabilis na po yung pag-generate ng information and data, mas maikli na po yung waiting time ng ating residents na makuha nila yung assistance from the LGU.
Dahil sa Plan Smart, hindi lang yung city mo yung makikita mo yung kung ano pwedeng mangyari. Kaya mas maganda to kasi may iwasan mo kagad at paghahanda kung ano pwedeng maranasan ng kalapit bayan mo sa city mo.
We're very grateful to become part of this movement for disaster resiliency, recovery, and rehabilitation. Opportunities like this dapat nating i-maximize because not everybody is given the opportunity to learn and particularly to be involved in a program that will prepare us for the difficult times and for the survival of many of us.
Hopefully, you will also reach out to private sector, to civil society organizations, to the development partners like World Bank, and of course, yung mga affected communities. So hopefully, you will use what you have learned here, and yung appeal ko sa inyo kanina, na kung kailangan ng other local government units,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2023 first quarter nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill. I'm Mina Marasigan from the Office of Civil Defense, and with me is Robert Padillo, also from OCD, and we are your hosts this afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first quarter nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill. We'd like to recognize, of course, the presence of our dear principals who are joining us this afternoon. Of course, we have from the Department of Science and Technology, Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, Director Dr. Teresito C. Bacolcol. Good afternoon, sir. We also have the Undersecretary from the Department of the Interior and Local Government and Vice Chairperson, of course, of our Disaster Preparedness, Undersecretary Serafin Barreto Jr. Good afternoon, sir. We also have from the Office of the Undersecretary for Disaster Response Management Group of the Department of Social Welfare and Development and the Vice Chairperson for Disaster Response, Undersecretary Marco M. Bautista. Good afternoon, sir. And of course, we also have our Undersecretary for National Defense, representing the Secretary of National Defense and the Chairperson of the NDRRMC, Undersecretary Angelito De Leon. Good afternoon, sir. And our very own Civil Defense Administrator, Undersecretary Ariel Nepomuceno. Good afternoon, sir. And of course, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of the other agencies and stakeholders present this afternoon. Thank you very much for participating to this event. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So to formally start with the program, may we join everyone for a short prayer to be, of course, led by the Chaplain Service of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Colonel, sir. Good afternoon, Colonel Flores.
Guidance and protection, O Lord. We know that earthquakes are a powerful force of nature that can cause widespread destruction and loss of life. We ask that you watch over us and keep us safe during this drill and in the event of a real earthquake. We also ask for wisdom and strength as we review our emergency procedures and practices, our response to a potential disaster. May we be able to remain calm and composed, following the protocols that have been put in place to keep us safe. Please be with us, O Lord, as we work together to ensure that everyone is accounted for and out of harm's way. May our actions be guided by your love and compassion, and may we be the source of comfort and support to one another. We pray for the safety and well-being of all members of this group, government agencies, AFP, their families, our communities, and all those who may be affected by an earthquake. May we continue to be diligent in our preparations and ready to respond with courage and resilience. Thank you for your constant presence in our lives and for your protection and guidance. This we ask in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Everyone, you may now take your seats. Before we officially start our activity this afternoon, allow us to provide you a short safety briefing.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, in case of any incident or emergency, please do not panic and please remain calm. And for an earthquake incident, of course, we all know that we do the duck, cover, and hold technique. And please make sure to do it properly and take cover on a sturdy table and hold still until the shaking stops. Once the shaking stops, of course, or any incident, please make sure to follow the emergency exit signs. And during the evacuation, the disaster control group of the Office of Civil Defense will be activated. The exercise management team will now act as the evacuation marshal to assist you to our assembly area.
We have 3 exits on this floor, 2 behind the screen and 1 at the back. Please do not use the exit to this side because that will lead you to our NDRM Operations Center. In case of intense ground shaking, please be mindful of falling debris.
The identified safe site is right in front of this building, this particular face. And should there be any aftershocks and signs of damages in the building, we encourage everyone to move to the field, this side, in front of the AFP grandstand, and accounting of all individuals will be conducted accordingly. And should there be any casualties, the disaster control group of the Office of Civil Defense will manage the incident. For the safety procedure, ladies and gentlemen, other safety features of the facility include the smoke detector, fire sprinkler system, and fire hose and fire extinguisher. And kindly take note of the number of the contact person of the Office of Civil Defense's safety officer, which, of course, are present now in this particular building in the guise of Sir Manuel Nivera as the head of the exercise management team. And to give us the message of support at this juncture, unless otherwise you have questions, we will now proceed with the messages of support.
Okay. To start giving the message of support from all of our principals here this afternoon, may we call on the Director of the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, Dr. Teresito Bacolcol.
Secretary Renato Sulitum Jr. of the Department of Science and Technology, Undersecretary Angel De Leon of the Department of National Defense, Undersecretary Serafin Barreto of the Department of Interior and Local Government, sir. Undersecretary Marco Bautista of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, Undersecretary Ariel Nepomuceno of Civil Defense Administrator and NDRMC Executive Director. Guests, fellow public servants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. These past days, Davao de Oro and other provinces in eastern Mindanao have been affected by a series of light to moderate earthquakes. So as I speak, the highest magnitude recorded by our 116 station in the series of events is the magnitude 5.9, which was felt at a PIVOX earthquake intensity scale, or PIS 6, in some municipalities in Davao de Oro 2 days ago. So 12 noon today, we have recorded 726 earthquakes following the magnitude 5.6 earthquake last March 7. The occurrence of strong earthquakes is expected because of the presence of different active faults in eastern Mindanao. The same is true for other areas in the country, including the National Capital Region. Today, we are testing our preparedness for the big one from the movement of the West Valley Fault, which may destabilize Metro Manila and nearby provinces. The STPVOX would like to underscore that the structural soundness of the buildings and household level readiness are the keys to saving lives and protecting properties. We should not wait for another deadly earthquake like what happened in Turkey and Syria to open our eyes and move our hands. We need to continuously intensify our efforts at the various levels of the government and sectors of the society, and at the same time empower every member of our family to be earthquake resilient. I'd like to end by acknowledging the families of my fellow disaster risk reduction or DRR practitioners and advocates, those who are called team. However, in memoranda and advisories when work and classes are suspended. Thank you for understanding the demands of our job and our pledge of service. Sometimes even sacrificing your time for your family and missing out important milestones of your loved ones. Let's all work together to build communities safe and resilient from earthquakes. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Director Bacolcol. Pinaalala mo talaga na miyembro po ang lahat na naririto ngayon ng team. However, so whenever we receive that memorandum na suspended ng trabaho, suspended na ang klase, guys, dapat nandito pa rin tayong lahat. Thank you for reminding us that, Director Bacolcol. Next message will be coming from the representative of the Vice Chairperson for Disaster Preparedness from the Department of the Interior and Local Government, Undersecretary Serafin Barreto.
Isang mapagpala at ligtas na araw po sa inyong lahat. Sa ating Director ng DOST, PhilBox, Director Dr. Teresito Bacolcol, Yusek Marco Bautista, sir. Yusek Angelito de Leon, the National Defense, sir. Yusek Ariel Nepomuceno, sir. Sa aking kasama, Director Alan Tabel. First of all, sa inyo po lahat, magandang araw. First of all, let me acknowledge the initiative and continuous dedication of the Department of National Defense and the Office of Civil Defense in your relentless effort to raise awareness on what to do before, during, and after an earthquake. Community preparedness may be accomplished by pre-propositioning resources and simulating procedures to guide us on how to respond to this kind of emergency. Among others, there is a huge part to mitigate and minimize the adverse effects of a disaster. Needless to say, the Department of Interior and Local Government will earnestly do its share in ensuring the readiness of the country in emergency situations and implementing proactive safety measures, particularly the local government units and public safety agencies. We have been experiencing numerous high-intensity earthquakes this day, as mentioned by Director Paul of Pillbox. The most recent among the series of earthquakes with magnitude ranging from 5.6 to 6 struck Davao de Oro and was strong enough to cause some panic in the community. Lalo na lagi nating nababalit na naalala yung maaaring mangyaring the big one. While fortunately there was no reported casualty, however, there were still reports of damages incurred by some infrastructures. According to reports, the devastating earthquake that hit Turkey on February 6 killed at least 45,000 people, rendered millions homeless across almost a dozen cities, and caused a massive damage estimated at $44 billion. Its recovery will neither be easy nor quick. Learning from recent events and with the worst case scenarios being studied and prepared for, should the West Valley Fault move and generate a 7.2 magnitude quake, earthquake drills and simulation exercises allow individuals to have knowledge of what to do and where to go during such occurrence. These drills are being conducted regularly in order to condition our body to respond to this kind of scenario on instinct. We are being trained to act without much conscious thought and let our mind and body act on its own as some sort of muscle memory. This because in emergency situation where time is of the essence, the window to make important decision is very, very limited. That is why it is important that we instill in our minds the automatic response needed to avoid confusion and keep ourselves safe during those critical times. The Department of Interior and Local Government, in close coordination and cooperation with the Department of National Defense, OCD, is committed to ensuring the public preparedness and safety. We are encouraging the local government units to intensify the implementation of the building code and other laws and rules and regulations to ensure that our buildings can survive high magnitude quakes. Aside from preparedness, we are also ensuring that our response unit, like the BFP, are well equipped with skills and capabilities to quickly and efficiently respond to critical and emergency situation. In time of emergencies, when we only have each other to rely on, it is paramount that we work together to minimize its impact and ensure everyone safety. Good afternoon, mabuhay po kayo lahat. Mag-ingat po tayo parati.
Maraming salamat po, Undersecretary Barreto ng Department of the Interior and Local Government. Alam niyo po, ang DILG and OCD, constant partners po yan, no? Para lang sa preparedness ng ating mga kababayan. Next, for the next message will be coming from the representative of the Vice Chair for Disaster Response, that's the Department of Social Welfare and Development, from the Office of the Undersecretary for Disaster Response Management Group, Undersecretary Marco Bautista.
Greetings and good afternoon to everyone. Sa ating buting Secretary Renato Solidum Jr., sa mga kasamahan natin sa National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, sa pangunguna ng Executive Director Ariel Nepomuceno, at sa lahat ng mga bumubuo at nakikilahok sa ating first quarter nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill, isang ligtas at mapagpalang araw sa lahat. Sa ngalan ng ating butiing kalihim, Secretary Rex Gatchalian, kami sa Department of Social Welfare and Development bilang Vice Chair ng Disaster Response Pillar ng NDRIMC ay nakikiisa sa pagdaraos ng first quarter nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill ngayong taon. Kinikilala natin na ang aktibidad gaya ng NSED ay isa sa mga mahalagang hakbang na sa ating sinasagawa upang mas mapalakas at mahikayat ang bawat isa sa kampanya ng disaster reduction and management. Ang pagtataguyod at pagsuporta sa kampanyang ito ay mahalaga upang mayanda ang bawat isa sa mga panganib na maaaring maidulot ng iba't ibang uri ng mga sakuna at kalamidad gaya ng lindol at tsunami na maaaring makapinsala sa buhay at pag-aari ng ating mga kababayan. Layo ng NSED na masiguro na ang bawat mamamayan ay may sapat na kaalaman upang malaman ang mga palatandaan at takbang na kanilang gagawin sa oras ng sakuna o kalamidad. Ang DSWD bilang bahagi at katuwang ng NDRIMC ay patuloy ang suporta sa pagpapalawak ng kaalaman at pagpapalakas ng kapasidad sa kahandaan ng ating mga kababayan upang matiyak ang kanilang kaligtasan sa anumang sakuna o kalamidad. Ang ahensya ay tumutulong sa pamamagitan ng pamamahagi ng impormasyon sa ating website at social media pages tungkol sa mga disaster preparedness measures ng ating pamahalaan na maaring magamit ng publiko. Dagdag pa rito, nagsasagawa rin ang ahensya ng pagsasanay kasama ang mga lokal na pamahalaan, private partners, international non-government organizations, civil society organizations, at ibang-ibang sektor ng mga lipunan at ang DSWD field offices upang mapahusay ang kaalaman at kasanayan ng ating mga kababayan sa pagharap ng mga kalamidad. Patuloy pa rin ang ating pagpapalakas at paghahanda sa tinatawag na The Big One. Sinisigurado ng ahensya na may sapat na food at non-food items na nakapreposition sa iba't ibang strategic DSWD warehouses sa buong bansa. Sa pagsasagawa natin ng first quarter national simultaneous earthquake drill, hinikayat ko ang lahat na makiisa sa amin na mag-duck, cover, and hold upang mapalaganap natin ang tamang kahandaan sa lindol. Patuloy nating suportahan ang mga inisyatibo at hakbangin ng ating pamahalaan upang maging handa sa banta na kinakaharap ng ating bansa sa lindol, tsunami at iba pang uri ng sakuna at kalamidad. Tunay ngang mas mainam na tayo'y maagap at laging handa dahil ang bawat buhay ay mahalaga. Maraming salamat at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Undersecretary Bautista ng DSWD. Napakaganda na sinabi ni Sir. Ang bawat buhay, the life of every Filipino is important. Ito po ang target natin. No, na sana walang casualties kapag nakakaranas tayo ng mga ganitong challenges. Napakahalaga po yun. Our next speaker is a longtime partner and mentor. A strong advocate of disaster resilience. We have no less than the chairperson for disaster prevention and mitigation, the Secretary of Department of Science and Technology, Secretary Renato U. Salidum Jr.
Sa kasamahan ko sa National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, sa media at lahat po ng ating kababayan, magandang hapon. Of all natural hazards, earthquakes cause the deadliest disasters, accounting for 58% of total disaster deaths between 2000 and 2019. This is a statement of Mami Mizotori, head of the UN Disaster Risk Reduction Office, given after the February 2023 twin earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. By now, Filipinos must already know and appreciate what earthquake disaster means. It is highly likely that we know someone, if not ourselves, who experienced impacts of devastating earthquakes in the Philippines, even abroad, in the last 2 decades. What knowledge do we already possess regarding earthquake impacts? 1. That strong ground shaking does not kill. It is the collapsed houses, buildings, and infrastructures that kill. Second, that collapsed houses, buildings, and infrastructures oftentimes result from bad construction practices, meaning 2 things: old buildings that no longer meet current standards, and new buildings that do not follow current standards. 3, that if we believe and accept that bad construction practices cause collapsed structures during earthquakes, then destruction and death due to earthquakes are preventable if bad practices are replaced by good practices. Colleagues, let me say that again: destruction and death due to earthquakes are preventable. Let us allow the tools of science assist us in making earthquake-resilient communities to prevent destruction and death. The Department of Science and Technology, through the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, and our various partners in government, develop the following tools or applications that are readily usable from our personal computers, laptops, and mobile devices that are absolutely free of charge. Number 1, how safe is my house? A self-assessment tool that every homeowner should take. It looks at 12 questions to assess 1 to 2 story concrete hollow block houses. At the end of the questionnaire, you'll be able to find out if your house will withstand an earthquake or not. Second, fault finder. It tells us how far away our home or workplaces or schools or any place in the Philippines is from a source of earthquake or the active fault. Number 3, hazard hunter. An application that within 30 seconds will be able to tell us what all natural hazards a specific area can be affected with, be it related to earthquakes, weather-related hazards, volcanic eruptions, or even related to landslides. Number 4, geoanalytics PH. It will show us in maps, tables, figures, the hazards assessment of a political unit, be it a barangay, a town, or city or province. And lastly, an integrative application, the Plan Smart, ready to rebuild, that can give national and local planners and even the local governments the necessary information needed for their development needs, such as the comprehensive land use plans, comprehensive development plans, disaster risk reduction and management plans, and local climate change action plans. You just type the name of your town or city, and the application will prepare all the hazards and risk assessment, complete with maps, tables and charts, the exposure of people by ages, by sex, and all the critical facilities that can be affected. And through a down-drop menu of interventions, then you can provide the intervention that you would need, especially after a major disaster has happened. It will revolutionize the preparedness of response plans, which usually would take more than 6 months to only a few days or a day if you are really an expert. You don't need a specialist to do this. You just need a training done by the NDRMC through FIVOX, OCD, and our partners. Lastly, to really simulate what happens before an earthquake event, the potential casualties, the potential number of buildings that might collapse, and for us to imagine the disaster that can happen if we do not do anything, then FIVOX has the Rapid Earthquake Damage Assessment System. It teaches our local planners to build the exposure database and develop the scenarios for earthquakes, tsunami, landslides, and even floods and strong wind in case of typhoons that will help us anticipate in advance what can happen in case of a strong earthquake and other hazards. These are all available and must be used. The Department of Science and Technology continues to develop various applications to make science more accessible in decision-making for prevention and mitigation, and encourage everyone to use them as our good practice. We should be proud of this because we are just the country, the only country in the world that has developed some of these applications, and we need to use it for our preparedness and to prevent death and destruction. I would like to end this message with something I learned way back in elementary, that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. This adage remains true to this day. Earthquake disasters, again, are preventable. And we have the tools to prevent those disasters. Mabuhay at maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary Solidum. Talagang paulit-ulit dapat nagre-resound ang mensaheng ito sa atin. The shaking does not kill. Kahit gano'ng kalakas pa yan, hindi yan nakamamatay. Yung collapse structure ang nakamamatay. So, kailangan gamitin agad natin yung mga tools na ito. Pag uwi natin, open natin na agad yan. How safe is my house? Alamin na natin. Mamaya pag uwi nyo, alamin nyo agad yan. So, napakahalaga, napakaraming tools. Gamitin po natin ito. Our next message is a video message coming from another supporter of our resilience campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the Philippines, Sara Zimmerman Duterte Carpio.
Assalamualaikum. Madayaw, ugmayong adlaw kaninyong tanan. Magandang araw sa inyo lahat. Nais kong purihin ang Office of Civil Defense sa pamamagitan ng National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council para sa patuloy na pagtuturo sa publiko ng kaalaman tungkol sa kaligtasan at pagbabawas ng panganib sa kalamidad at pamamahala sa pamamagitan ng pagsasagawa ng quarterly nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill. Sa maraming pagkakataon, nasaksihan natin ang mga kahihinatnan ng mga mapanganib na lindol at ang mga implikasyon ng walang kahandaan ng publiko kapag nahaharap sa malagim na sitwasyon tulad ng lindol. Nagdudulot ito ng malaking pagkawasak at pagkawala ng buhay. The Philippines is located in the Pacific Ring of Fire. As such, it is a natural phenomenon to experience earthquakes. The Philippine Institute for Volcanology and Seismology has noted that the Philippines experiences a range of 100 to 150 earthquakes a year. That figure is enough to remind us that we must not take these occurrences lightly and must learn to adapt, prevent disasters caused by earthquakes, and mitigate impacts through knowledge of our safety procedures that can help us save our own lives and the lives of our families and other people. The quarterly nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill is an important initiative to help spread awareness about earthquake safety in order to protect lives and property. This drill provides an opportunity for individuals, families, and communities, businesses, and government agencies to practice their emergency preparedness plans in the event of an earthquake. It also serves as a reminder to review safety protocols regularly in order to stay informed on the latest safety measures. I enjoin all the citizens who have the opportunity to participate in drills like these, as well as those who can attend public awareness campaigns on safety procedures, to join and be part of a proactive society whose citizens are knowledgeable about disaster safety procedures, proper planning that is cognizant of earthquake faults and historical dried up waterways, and personal safety standards that will be useful in times of need. Lahat para sa Diyos, sa bayan, at sa bawat pamilyang Pilipino. Shukran.
Sir, nagpapasalamat po kami sa Office of the Vice President para sa dalian po na mensahe na ibinigay at ibinahagi para sa ating activity ngayong hapon. Alright, for our keynote message this afternoon, here's and he will be representing the chairperson of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council and the officer in charge of the Department of National Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, acting Undersecretary of National Defense, Undersecretary Angelito M. De Leon.
To Secretary Renato Solidum, sir. Undersecretary Ariel Nepomuceno, Undersecretary Marco Bautista, Undersecretary Serafin Barreto, Director Dr. Teresito Bacolcol, all the other guests attending in this afternoon's activity, the staff of the Office of Civil Defense, members of the media, friends, ladies and gentlemen, present, good afternoon to everyone. Ang ating pong butihing kalihim ng Departamento ng Tanggulang Pambansa, si Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. and the Chairman of the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council would have wanted to join us, but he's now in Malacanang for an important meeting, and he has requested me to read his message. And I quote, "Isang ligtas at pinagpalang hapon sa ating lahat. Today's nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill is the first in the series of activities of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council for 2023. We aim to test our harmonized contingency plan for a magnitude 7.0 earthquake that may occur due to the movement of the West Valley Fault. We will also demonstrate the interoperability and coping mechanisms of NDRRMC member agencies, including assisting regional disaster risk reduction management councils. More importantly, we endeavor to identify gaps and determine recommendations to enhance our current plans, policies, programs, and procedures on earthquake response. Noong nakalipas na taon, naganap ang malalakas na paglindol sa Abra at iba't ibang bahagi ng ating bansa, nagdulot ng pinsala at pagkasawi ng ilan nating mga kababayan. Nitong Pebrero, isang napakalakas na lindol ang yumanig sa bansang Turkiye na kumitil ng napakaraming buhay at sumira sa di mabilang na mga gusali at ari-arian. Patunay ito na ang lindol ay walang pinipiling lugar at panahon. Kaya kailangan nating maging laging handa laban sa hamon na ito. Kaya naman patuloy tayong nagsasagawa ng earthquake drills para tiyakin na ang pamahalaan ay may kakayahang tumugon sa mga pinsalang dulot ng malalakas na lindol at iba pang kalamidad na maaari nating maranasan. Hindi tayo tumitigil sa paghahanda at pagsasanay upang maging panatag at magkaroon ng kumpiyansa ang ating mga mamamayan na ginagawa natin ang lahat upang tiyakin ang kanilang kaligtasan. Through Filipino ingenuity, adaptability, and resilience, we can collectively make our country stronger and more agile to surmount challenges. We have learned to be proactive and put a premium on disaster prevention and mitigation, as well as disaster preparedness. Having adopted a comprehensive disaster risk reduction approach, the Philippines now focuses on decreasing the vulnerabilities and increasing the resilience of communities. As a proof of our growing capability, our recent humanitarian mission to Turkey proved very successful. Our contingent, the Philippine Interagency Humanitarian Contingent, ably provided assistance to the earthquake-stricken communities against the difficulties brought by the unforgiving climate and terrain. As your chairperson, I thank and congratulate the NDRRMC, its member agencies, our private sector partners, stakeholders, and our citizens nationwide for your active participation in this drill, thereby ensuring its success. Mga kababayan, tandaan po natin ang kaligtasan ng ating mga pamayanan ay nakasalalay hindi lamang sa isang tao, pero siya ng pamahalaan, kundi sa ating pagkakaisa, sama-samang paghahanda at pagtutulungan. Lagi po nating tandaan na sa panahon ng kalamidad at sakuna ay ligtas ang laging handa. Maraming salamat at mabuhay ang sambayang Pilipino. End of message. Thank you and good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you very much to our Undersecretary for National Defense for delivering the message of the chairperson of the NDRRMC. And thank you, sir, for stressing the message of preparedness. That is the very reason why we are gathered once again in this particular hall to stress the essence of preparedness through our different programs, specifically the NSED or the Nationwide Simultaneous Earthquake Drill. So isang masigabong palakpakan pong muli sa mga mensaheng ipinamigay ng ating mga principals. Maraming salamat pong muli. And ika nga, to hit the ball rolling, let us now proceed with the discussion of the exercise overview to be delivered by the Curriculum Development Division Chief, Mr. Manuel De Vera Jr. Sir Manny.
Our distinguished guests, participants of this exercise, ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. May I present to you the exercise overview. For this NSED, we will be conducting an evacuation drill, communication and coordination drill, and functional exercise. The objective of this exercise is to demonstrate and test the capabilities of the NDRRMC member agencies in responding to the effects of the devastating earthquake, particularly in portraying their roles as members of the Council. The exercise scenario will simulate the occurrence of a magnitude 7.2 earthquake with the intensity 8 that have occurred due to the movement of the West Valley Fault on March 9 today at around 2 p.m. 3 regions will be affected: Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and Calabar Zone. Particularly, Metro Manila will suffer regional separation. Due to the devastation resulting from the strong ground shaking, the harmonized national contingency plan will be activated. The alternate emergency operations center of the NDRMC will be established in Fort Magsaysay, Nueva Ecija. For the functional exercise, We have invited one director or division chief together with their technical staff from the agencies as shown. For this exercise, we are very lucky to have Dr. Tedis Guerra, sir. Sir Erwin Paulo Tolentino of PDRF, Mr. Miguel Adrian Garcia of PDRF, Jem Eric Famorcan of DSWD, also from DSWD, Arias Diaz, and from NRC, Mr. Christopher Estalio and Mr. Arlan Bernido, and from UP Diliman, Mr. Dennis Kilala, and also, not on the slide, from the Armed Forces of the Philippines, led by Major Clifford Pidakan. They will help us evaluate the output of this exercise. That ends my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Manny. Upon checking, we have 8 more minutes before 2 o'clock p.m. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon kasi po, we shall have the ceremonial pressing of the button, signifying the start of the nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill. So medyo mag-stretch na kayo kasi sabay-sabay tayong magda-duck over and hold at exactly 2 o'clock before we shall begin our countdown in a few minutes. Pero Robert, liga nga dito sa tabi ko. Alam mo Robert, para sa kaalaman ng mga players natin and our principals, no, para sa kaalaman din ng ating publiko at live nanonood ngayon sa Civil Defense PH, alam niyo po ba na ang buong officials and staff no less than Malacanang will be joining us this afternoon. Pati sila magdadak overloadan kasabay natin. So hindi iniisip po anong opisina siya. Kailangan na nakikisa sa ating kampanya for preparedness.
That is absolutely correct, ma'am. Nakatanggap tayo ng tawag. Actually, bumisita tayo nung nakaraan sa Malacanang para sa kanilang preparations din. That is why they are joining. That is absolutely correct po. And more than that, the entire nation will be watching us once again and will be joining us today sa atin pong gagawing nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill.
Okay, so sino bang gusto mo na pwede ba mag-picture-picture muna tayo para mamaya diretso na lang, no? Para sa pag-duck over and hold. So, sirs, asan na yung kasya? So, when we request our principal, sir, magpo-post muna po tayo saglit. Kunyari, pipiwan niyo po munang pindutin, baka po mag-alarm agad. So, magpo-post po tayo for photos, ating official photo for the ceremonial pressing of the button. Para pagka nag-press po tayo later on, ay diretsong duck over and hold po tayo. Wala po exempted sa pag-duck over and hold ngayong hapon na. Wala po mag-excuse na meron pong rayuma o arthritis. Lahat po tayo magda-duck over and hold. Okay? So, kunyari po. Kunyari lang. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes na lang, magdi-drill na tayo.
Okay, pwede po tayong maghunat-hunat kasi may actual evacuation po tayong gagawin. May mag-a-assure po sa inyo kung saan kayo dadaan pababa. Pwede po tayong mag-stretching, baka hindi po tayo gagamit ng elevator at this point. So maghahagdan po tayo 3 floors, almost 2 floors from here. And may we remind everyone, still we have COVID-19, so let us maintain a little bit of a safe distance from each other. Okay, i-remind din na po natin na bago mag-pressing mamaya, wag po nating haharangan dito sa may middle part kasi naka-live po tayo sa ating FB page. Sa atin po nakasalalay yung buong bansa susunod sa atin para sa ating pressing of the button. Thank you very much. And countdown to 3 minutes before the actual pressing of the button.
Ibayan ang sarili, wag matakot. Delubyo't sakuna, walang hindi kaya. Basta't lahat tayo ay sama-sama. Habang may panahon, maganda ngayon tayo'y aahon. Maging ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas. Maging ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas. Ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas. Ligtas, maging panatag, Kahandaan ang susi sa kaligtasan. Kaalaman ng kailangan ng mamamayan. Buhay ang katapat, iwasang mapahamak. Tulong-tulong sa ngalan ng bayan. Habang may panahon, maganda ngayon tayo'y ahon. Maging ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas. Ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas. Ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas. Ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas. Maging panatag, Pilipinas. Maging panatag, Pilipinas. Maging ligtas, maging panatag, Pilipinas.
Today started as any other normal day. Children are attending classes in their schools while employees are busy with their work. At around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a strong ground shaking was felt in various parts of Metro Manila. People do the dock cover and hold and find their own safe spots during the ground shaking. Loud crying and screaming can be heard everywhere. After the shaking, the people immediately evacuated to a safe area.
After the accounting of the people who evacuated from the buildings, the Department of Information and Communications Technology immediately set up an emergency telecommunications. Simultaneously, the Emergency Operations Center is being set up at this juncture. The disaster control group is now assessing the personnel.
Evacuated from the building are carrying with them their go bags. So these contains emergency items that they could use in case of evacuation and in times of emergencies. The accounting of employees and personnel is very important because we would know if there is somebody missing or probably there could have been somebody injured, and the disaster control group would have to take over and ensure that all floors have been evacuated. Currently, the Department of Information and Communications Technology are establishing communications with other government agencies and even including our regional offices of the Office of Civil Defense to ensure that they are up and ready to assist the National Capital Region in this event.
What you see on the screen is the JEX move of the Department of the Information Communications Technology, or the Government Emergency Communications System, mobile operations vehicle.
Currently, there is an emergency happening at the old building of the Office of Civil Defense. There is a simulation of an injured person being evacuated using the office's spine board. And you can see the medical personnel of the disaster control group attending to the injured personnel.
Richard, ano mo, yung cellphone mo.
Roger, ay isa kang paminado activity na i-cover natin dahil yun ang preference ngayon, Roger. Yung Roger na, Roger.
The injured personnel from the Office of Civil Defense is now being prepared to be carried inside an ambulance and will be eventually brought to the nearest hospital for treatment.
West Quadrant. West Quadrant. West Quadrant, kumusta ang signal ng Bantu? Radio check lang West Quadrant o Kapit. Magandang signal is that Network sir. OCD. Okay. Okay na. Ano nangyari? Yun na. Simultaneous earthquake. Okay, sino ba gusto mo lang? Pwede ba? Hindi na nilike. Hindi ko na nilike. Hindi, hindi na. Hindi na.
Nakalay ba tayo? Kami na?
Wala naman sir. Kaya pakita ko sa video. Ayun, hanggang ngayon. Luwari ka pa siya eh.
Pumuna kayo dyan. Radyo ka.
Ayun na. Sineset up na
especially in cases of emergency, dapat ano tayo, we're very flexible. So we're making this adjustment. We're having the press briefing in advance. So I'd like to acknowledge all our friends from the media who are joining us from the Defense Press Corps as well as those who are assigned in the NDRMC Media Beat. Marami pong salamat, sinamahan nyo kami. Mga kasama po natin sa ating pulong balitaan ngayong hapon po, ang ating mga pinuno ng iba't ibang mga kagawaran at ang kanilang mga kinatawan para po dito sa ating aktibidad. Starting from to my far right, is the director of the Philippine Institute for Volcanology and Seismology, Director Teresito Bacolcol. Sir, good afternoon. Following we have next to the good director is the Undersecretary of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, Undersecretary Marco Bautista. Sir, good afternoon. Next to Undersecretary Bautista, we have the Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology, Secretary Renato Solidum Jr., and representing our Officer in Charge of the Department of National Defense and Chairperson of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, OIC Undersecretary Carlito Galvez. We have Acting Undersecretary for National Defense, Undersecretary Angelito De Leon, sir. Good afternoon. Our Civil Defense Administrator and NDRMC Executive Director, Yusek Ariel Nepomuceno, is with us as well. And coming from the Department of the Interior and Local Government, we have Undersecretary Serafin Barreto. And completing the roster is DILG Director Alan Tabel. Can we request from the good secretary an opening statement for this briefing, sir? Thank you.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Kung maalala niyo, itong nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill ay sinimulan pa natin noong taong 2005. So napakatagal na panahon na meron tayo dito na ginagawa. Pero sa hapon ngayon, ang ating ginagawang simulation exercise ay para ma-test yung gagawin ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno and members ng NDRMC, including the private sector, para sa kanilang pagre-responde sa isang senaryo na malakas na lindol dito sa Metro Manila. Kaya tinawag itong functional exercise. But definitely, marami pang ibang klase ng exercise at hindi nyo mapapansin yung mga bumababa sa building, but that's a different exercise, no? So ito ay functional exercise na makikita natin kung paano mag-responde, ano yung planong ginagawa at paano sila mag-desisyon during the exercise.
Thank you very much. Hello? Sir, ladies and gentlemen, I will now be opening the floor for your questions. For you to be recognized, please raise your hand and then introduce yourself from what network you are, and then we will be entertaining your questions. Yes, the gentleman over there. Yes.
Sir, you mentioned in 2005 na
Hello.
muscle memory. Sa assessment po, sir, sa assessment po, sir, kamusta na yung muscle memory ng collecting din ng Pilipinas?
Mukhang sanay na sanay tayo. But remember, marami pa rin mga kabataan na ngayon pa lang magkakaroon ng mga exercises. Kaya kahit may ganong muscle memory ang marami, kailangan nating gawin ito 4 na beses sa isang taon. At sa mga eskwelahan, pwede naman silang anytime mag-decide sila kung kailan sila magdi-drill.
Thank you. Do we have... Oh, yes.
Sir, expound lang, sir, yung nabanggit kanina, sir, na shaking does not kill, para collective fear.
Ang shaking kasi, kahit gaano kalakas ang yugyug, basta hindi ka mabagsakan ng piraso ng bahay o infrastruktura o hindi mag-collapse ang bahay o building, walang mangyayari sa'yo. Unless maatake ka sa puso. So, ibig sabihin, kung wala namang babagsak at tatama sa'yo, safe ka. Now, that's the common cause of death, no? Pero syempre, ang isa pa dyan, sa mga bundok, pag may landslide, pwede kang matabunan. O kaya kung magkaroon ng tsunami naman. But definitely, karamihan ng casualty At kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng search and rescue, kadalasan sa urban areas, building collapse ang problema.
Pero sir, what is the best answer na lumabas?
After the shaking. Lalo na sa mga konkretong building after the shaking. Pero gusto nating emphasize na ang mga bahay at gusali na hindi magwi-withstand ng earthquake ay hindi na dapat ginagamit. Yung drop, cover, and hold and pag-exit after the earthquake, ang assumption nun, the building is structurally resilient na hindi siya mag-collapse talaga. No? So yun yung kailangan nating maintindihan. That is why it is important na magkaroon ng mga inspeksyon ng mga bawat bahay at gusali na ginagamit. Well, pag pwede na, pagtapos ng shaking. Ganoon lang kasimple. Pagkatapos ng shaking, at dapat yung preparedness natin, ini-imagine natin kung saan tayo nakapwesto, saan ang best way at dadaanan. Yung walang mga most likely na babagsak, walang mga bubog, broken glasses. Importante po na ma-identify na natin. Pero dapat may secondary route tayo, may secondary daanan. Na kung hindi pwede sa primary, doon tayo sa secondary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. And thank you. I think the gentleman here was the first to raise this question. Your name, sir, and your...
Sir Michael Deliso, sa ABS-CBN. Sir, yung kaninang exercise, liwanag naman ano yung natunghayan natin, sir? Ano yung mga nakita natin?
Although, before that, sir, let me just clarify. The functional exercise is still happening right now. Yes, sir, ongoing. Yes, sir.
Ang pinakita dito, primarily, yun din ang objective natin, is to test the capability of the government agencies to coordinate during the actual disaster or earthquake in this case. Yun yung pinractice natin, pati yung communication capability natin. And nakita natin, sa ganito scenario, pwede. But we will also develop other drills that will recognize other possibilities. Halimbawa, hindi na uubra yung usual communication lines using cell phones or internet-based communications. We will just use radios. Susubukan natin sa susunod yon. But for today's drill, nakita natin successfully that we can still establish the so-called command and control given the scenario. But magpa-practice pa tayo in the future ng ibang scenarios.
So, sir, hindi ito yung... Kasi ba pinapakita natin yung pahandaan ng mga personnel natin? Hindi ito yung parang nakita natin yung mga recent exercises na may reenactment. Ngayon po parang buwaba lang yung mga tao. Cover po, tapos buwaba yung evacuate yung mga tao.
Yes, pero gagawa tayo ng ganyang exercise. Halimbawa, this morning, we checked and inspected the tactical units from the Philippine Coast Guard, Air Force, Army, MMDA, OCD, and all the other agencies. We checked their equipment. So for this year's first NSED, yun na muna yung tinignan natin para yung ating assets will be we did an inventory. That was nationwide this morning. And then gagawa nga tayo again ng series. Every quarter meron yan kung ano yung mga dapat nating i-check. But in between, as Secretary Silidum said, like the schools, they can do their own drills in between.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Brian Presidio from Sir, compared to the past earthquake, yung sariling changes na ginawa natin ngayon.
Pinasa sa akin kasi ako daw yung pinakamatanda dito na nagsimula ng earthquake drill, 2005 pa. So tama yung napapansin nyo na nagbabago every time yung drill. Pero ang basic sa drill ay yung drop, cover, and hold. Ligtas muna ang bawat isa sa atin. Kaya tayo pumunta sa open area. At yung nakikita ng iba na merong response, no? Search and rescue and response, dito sa building na to hindi ginawa. At ang ginagawa dyan sa loob, nagkakaroon ng coordination exercises. Kasi napaka-importante yung bawat ahensya na alam ang kanilang role at sino ang gagawa at sino dapat ang magsuporta. Yun po yung ginagawa ngayon. At makita, may gaps pa ba? Bakit po natin ginagawa yun? Kasi nagbabago din ang mga personnel ng mga ahensya. At so mga players pa iba-iba. So dapat from time to time, nire-review yung functional evaluation. Kaya nga functional exercise.
Sir, based doon sa nangyaring dito sa Turkey, meron ba tayong i-apply na, meron tayong parang nasong i-apply sa Pilipinas?
Actually, yung nangyari sa Turkey, pinapakita lang na isipin natin na bakit maraming namatay sa Turkey and Syria. Una-una, large magnitude earthquake, magnitude 7.8. Ang tanong, kaya ba ng ganun sa Pilipinas? Ang sagot, yes. Nangyari na yan in the past, like 1990 Luzon earthquake, magnitude 7.8, pero meron pang mas malakas dyan in the early 1900s sa Mindanao, magnitude 8.3. Pangalawa, yung oras ng lindol will affect the number of casualty. So, iba yung nighttime scenario, iba ang daytime scenario. Pero ang nangyari sa Turkey early morning, natutulog yung mga tao kaya mataas ang casualty. Pangatlo, nakikita natin na mga building doon, ang collapse nila ay pancake, vertically. Ibig sabihin, may mga mahihinang floor, ang tawag doon ay soft stories. No, na ibig sabihin, for example, sa mga larawan, yung ground floor ay walang wall. Typically, mga glass lang yan, o mga tindahan, o parking. Dapat malalapad din ang kolong. So, pag mahina ang isang floor, doon magsisimula ang bagsak, kaya imbes na tagilid, diretso pababa. So, the lesson there is, we need to make sure that our houses and buildings are evaluated and structurally sound or retrofitted. So, programa yan ng gobyerno. Pangalawa, kailangan din natin magsanay, hindi lang sa araw, pati na rin sa gabi. Madalas tayo sa araw, kaya minsan umaga, minsan hapon, minsan gabi. Once or twice lang tayo naggabi na drill. No? So, siguro, gagawin din natin yon. And definitely, pagdating ng large magnitude earthquake sa hanay namang ng Department of Science and Technology at PHIVOX, marami na tayong ginawang earthquake scenario sa iba't ibang lugar sa Pilipinas na ginagamit every time na may nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, sir, please.
Sir, tabi na sa Secretary Sir, yung as per study, gaano sir kalaki ang impact nito when it comes to NCR?
Tinatanong ko yung bagong direktor kung siya nasasagot ako. Anyway, dalawang studies na ginawa natin. In 2004, with MMDA, PHIVOX and JICA, ito yung Metro Manila Earthquake Impact Reduction Study. So, ang casualty doon ay 33,500 by building collapse. Dagdag pa yan kung hindi nakaalis yung mga tao sa mga bahay na madaling masunog, 18,000 additional death by fire. So may solution doon. Marami na pwedeng gawin. Nighttime scenario. Pangalawang study na ginawa natin in 2013, PHIVOX and Geoscience Australia. Metro Manila only, around 30,000 deaths. So statistically magkapareho. Pero alam natin na ang shaking ay hindi lang sa Metro Manila, sa lahat ng probinsya ng Region 3 and Region 4A. So sa aming evaluation, sa PHIVOX study, kung i-include natin yung mangyayari sa Metro Manila and provinces in Regions 3 and 4A, especially yung immediate surrounding Metro Manila, close to 50,000 death and 20,000 critically injured. So ibig sabihin, yung critically injured, pwede pang madagdag yon sa patay. So that's the gravity ng situation. And around 10 to 13% of buildings 1 to 9 stories, from 10 to 30 stories, and public buildings will suffer heavy damage or collapse. No? Yun yung statistics.
Sir, last question. So sir, gaano kahalaga itong gamat quarterly ginagawa itong earthquake drill, pero gaano ito kahalaga? Ma-apply ba ito when it comes to the big one ay dumating na sir?
Tama, ma-apply talaga. At bakit ito mahalaga? Isipin nyo, pag dumating yung lindol, wala nang ibang makakatulong sa inyo. Kayo lang ang makaka-address kung ikaw ay buhay o patay. Kasi sarili mismo ang iyong proprotektahan. Kanya-kanya tayo during the earthquake event. That is why it is very important na lahat tayo ay sumasali sa mga earthquake drill. Pag ligtas ka na, saka yan papasok ang mga responders kasi dapat buhay muna yung magre-responde na marami. So it is important that even the responder should be alam talaga na yun yung pangunahing layunin. Sila ay ligtas, walang injury. Pangalawa, yung kanilang mga pamilya, hindi rin nadali ng earthquake. Kasi minsan, mangingibabaw yung kanilang care sa kanilang family, so dapat ganun din. Na ang mga bahay ng mga ating mga responder ay maayos din. So, importante na ito ay gawin ng bawat isa.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir, please.
Sir, I think 10 years ago, ginawa ng Metro Manila yung quadrant. Still in effect pa rin po ba yung medyo parang hindi na napapractice?
Okay.
Quadrant is quadrant 4 yata yung sir.
The quadrant that Metro Manila Development Authority did is based on the impact scenario sa Metro Manila. Isipin nyo po, pag lumindol, building ay mayayanig. Mga tulay ay mayayanig. Mabuti na lang marami ng tinayong mga tulay across Pasig River. Pero imagine kung lahat ng tulay across Pasig River ay hindi magamit and across Marikina River ay hindi magamit, meron na tayong isolation between Makati and Mandaluyong, for example, or Quezon City. And then kasi east-west yung Pasig River. Yung Marikina River, north-south naman yan. So, between east side, Marikina and Pasig, and some parts of Pasig in the west, hindi rin makakatawid. No? So, ilan quadrant na yun? 3. And then, western zone ng Metro Manila, coastal cities, nandyan yung maraming mga informal settlement. So, at malalambot po ang lupa dyan kasi yung liquefaction, bubuka yung lupa. So, ma-isolate din sila at marami ding tulay na maliliit. So, given that possible momentary isolation, kaya nagkaroon ng quadrant. Pinapatupad pa po yun ng Metro Manila. May naka-assign pa pong mga tauhan ng MMDA dyan.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir, please.
Sir, kung may datas po kayo, ilang porsyento yung mga gusali na kumbaga dito sa Metro Manila at least kung pasado sa current standards or they can withstand 7.8 magnitude.
Okay. Based on the study, let us clarify ang ating National Building Code and Structural Code assures us na ang isang building ay hindi magko-collapse at intensity 8. Okay? So, given that guidance, sinabi ko sa inyo kanina na 10 to 13% will suffer heavy damage or collapse. Okay? So, yung iba ay hindi magko-collapse. Pero pwedeng moderate or slightly damaged. Ang alam ko, if you total slightly to heavily damaged, baka mga 50%. Pero, hindi ibig sabihin may slight damage ay hindi pasado. Kasi, by guidance, pwedeng magkaroon ng minor cracks ang building basta hindi mag-collapse. So, okay lang yon sa ating building code. So, doon ka mag-focus sa 10 to 13%.
Thank you very much. Sir, in this morning's activity, nagkaroon tayo ng mustering of forces, There were some questions from the media, so ako na mag-abot ng isa, to Undersecretary De Leon and to Undersecretary Nepomuceno. We saw the AFP, the uniformed services, and our other counterparts showing their capabilities as well as the equipment and assets. Do you think po, with that showcasing of our capability, are we truly ready to face the challenge of a major earthquake here in Manila?
Thank you very much for the question. Ako po ay dating nasa serbisyo din at nakita ko po ang evolution ng disaster response units ng ating Armed Forces of the Philippines to include our partner agencies, the Philippine National Police. At masasabi ko po na malaki na po ang improvement from the previous capabilities that we have. Most especially the dedicated units that will handle disaster response. Sa Army po, a former, the 525th Engineer Construction Battalion has been converted into an Engineer Combat Battalion specifically for disaster response. The same holds true with the 505th Search and Rescue Squadron at iba pong mga contingent from the Philippine Navy and our partner agencies from the armed services. Pero po ay hindi po kami tumitigil sa pagde-develop ng aming capabilities on disaster response. Sa totoo lamang po, ang ating pong kalihim ng tanggulang pambansa ay binibigyang prioridad ang development of capability.
are very well qualified because we follow international standards on capabilities, yung INSARAG. Okay. Subalit, but the challenge is, paano tayo magkakaroon ng tinatawag na force multiplier? Ibig sabihin, yung mga magagaling sa 525th ng Army at 505th ng Air Force and yung mga nasa Bureau of Fire and Protection, magagaling sila. Meron silang special units dedicated for that. So what's going on right now, we are trying through them to replicate their abilities in terms of skills and equipment, paano mai-cascade yan into other Bureau of Fire and Protection units and yung mga LGU volunteers. For example, last weekend, we went to Tacloban. Nakita namin doon yung skills ng Tacloban BFP. You will be surprised had you seen it. Talagang magagaling sila. Collapse structure, high structures, they could do the job. Pero ang tinitrain nila doon, at may graduation sila after 1 week, for I think 4-week or 3-week training, yung mga nag-volunteer from the LGUs ng dalawang bayan ng Region 8. So that's what we're doing right now. Again, in terms of quality of the skills of our tactical units, maganda. Qualified, nakita naman yan sa Turkey. Okay. Pero dapat damihan natin yun. That's the challenge.
Thank you, Undersecretary Nepomuceno. Nag-mastering kaninang umaga and then we saw lots of those equipment assets being showcased. There was a question, how about the local government units? Because the earthquake scenario, it cannot be confined here in Metro Manila alone. Di ba po nakikita natin there are other areas in the Philippines that are encountering earthquake emergencies. There's a question po, what is the DILG working on to be able to replicate these preparations being done at the national level, at the local level? Director Tabel, please.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the question. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. On behalf of Secretary Benhar Abalos and Undersecretary Steve Barreto, sa DILG, especially in NCR, in Regions 3 and 4A, lahat po ng mga local government units, na-revise na nila yung kanilang contingency plan for earthquakes. And we're very proud of that. The LGUs of NCR and Regions 3 and 4A are very proud of that. That's the first. Kasi doon mag-umpisa yung risk assessment doon sa contingency plan. So, nagawa na po nila lahat yon at na-validate na po yon at nagkakaroon po ng mga regular na testing ng plans. This is not the time to explain how that works, but tinetest po yung mga plan para makita kung may mga gaps pa. Okay, and then the next thing that they're doing, and we start here in NCR, 15 out of 17 LGUs here have already started investing in equipment and training for personnel. Dito sa NCR, nandito na yata yung pinakamayamang mga syudad sa buong Pilipinas. So, hindi ganun kataas yung challenge for funding the procurement of equipment and the training of its people, including yung hiring. No? So, medyo mataas yung level. But again, may challenge doon sa Regions 3 and 4A. Because alam natin yung mga local government units doon ay hindi kasing angat doon sa mga LGU sa NCR. However, standardized na kasi yung mga requirement for the trainings like for search and rescue, for medical, emergency medical support, etc. So, tapos na tayo doon sa pag-standardize. Yung pag-training na lang talaga, yung pag-conduct na lang ng mga training mismo, and yung pag-procure ng equipment. By the way, mauuna muna yung procurement ng equipment mostly before the trainings. So I would honestly say and admit na as far as the people that are right there now sa ating mga LGU sa NCR, Regions 3 and 4A, I would say na lampas 50% na tayo sa dapat nating ma-achieve. Sa totoo lang, kung hindi lang nagkaroon ng pandemic, itong 2.5 taon na naputol yung mga activities, we would have attained more than 75% of the target skills and competencies that we anticipated for the LGUs. But ang tawag namin sa DILG, we are doing a reboot of what we have started until before the pandemic or until the pandemic hit us. And we are going back stronger this time kasi marami tayong hinahabol. You know? And we don't even know if the people that we trained before are still there. So yun yung isang challenge. On the other hand, yung nabanggit na Secretary Solidum earlier, and that we always say this in our advocacies, it is not the earthquake that kills, it's the collapsed buildings and the collapsed structures. In Metro Manila, this is reflected in the Meyer study in 2004 and the RAP study in 2013 na karamihan ng mga mamamatay from the 30,000 plus calculated or computed death rate ay manggagaling sa mga bahay na gawa sa yung 2-story to 3 stories na concrete hollow block houses na hindi dinesign at inapprove ng engineers dito sa Metro Manila. And I would suppose this will be the same scenario sa mga LGU sa labas ng Metro Manila. So, ini-encourage natin, actually, ang DILG and our partner agencies will be doing this month, starting this month, another round of infra audit. In-audit natin together with our partner agencies, DPWH, BFP, OCD, and the rest, yung mga buildings, kung kaya ba nilang ma-withstand yung scenario na intensity 8, magnitude 7.2. No? Again, napatunayan na ito in many studies and many of the workshops that we did. Yung mga matataas na building, even if they're located very near the fault line, hindi ho matutumba yung building. Pero yung mga tao na nasa loob ng building, okay, at merong magko-collapse na kisame, or merong babagsak na aparador or whatever na hindi naka-fasten sa wall, those are the killers. Yung mga glass windows na hindi safe glasses, when they shatter, magiging shrapnel. So, ito yung kaibahan doon sa ginagawa ng LGU to help develop themselves to be able to prepare and respond to earthquakes. Pero mahalaga din yung kaalaman ng mga kababayan natin na yung kanilang tinitirhan, whether it's a 2 or 3-story house na hindi engineered at nangyari yung earthquake na tulog silang lahat. At saka yung mga nakatira sa mga skyscrapers or tall buildings na malapit or maapektuhan ng earthquake. Because hindi pwedeng magkanya-kanya at hindi sila connected. So this is now the biggest challenge for government, for DILG and all our partners na katulong ang media. May parating natin sa ating mga kababayan, lalo na dito sa mga lugar na merong earthquake generators at hindi lang ito Metro Manila. All over the country, meron actually bigger ones at saka the biggest ones. Hindi lang yung 7.2 na West Valley Fault earthquake ang pinag-uusapan. So it's important that we connect and we connect to the people through media. Kaya nagpapasalamat kami sa inyong lahat. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Abel. There's also another question here kasi sinabi po, yes, we are preparing in terms of capability to respond. And part of the response requirements is to support relief operations. Do we have sufficient supply to be able to feed the populations that would be displaced in case of emergency? I think Yusek Bautista is in the best position to answer this question, sir.
Hello. Yes po. Ang DSWD po ay we are still preparing and we are capable of providing the necessary relief goods as well as the non-food items pag nagkaroon po ng disaster. Constant po yan na tayo po ay nag-establish ng capability. In fact, we are engaging now the private sectors for the supply chain, establishment of the supply chain and distribution system natin. Hindi lang dito sa Metro Manila, at ito po ay ginagawa na po ni Secretary. Ang vision niya is for us to have a superior supply chain and distribution system across the country. So far po ay meron naman tayong quick response fund na talagang nandyan po na standby para gamitin po ito in case there is disaster aside from our stockpile inventory sa mga warehouses po natin.
Thank you very much. Yes, Yusek De Leon, sir.
Mayroon lamang po akong gustong idagdag in terms of our international security partnerships with our allies, security partners, and our friends abroad. Ang Armed Forces of the Philippines po ay tuloy-tuloy na nagkakaroon ng mga humanitarian assistance and disaster response operations exercise scenarios with our allies and our security partners, to name a few, ang United States of America, Australia, Japan, and South Korea. Para po ang importante po rito is yung interoperability ng Armed Forces of the Philippines with the Armed Forces of other nations. Sa lahat po na naging malalaking disaster in the past, like Pablo, Ondoy, Yolanda, and other disasters na experience po natin, malaki rin po ang naging tulong ng ating security partners from other countries. Kaya tuloy-tuloy po. And we are also developing our HADR concept with Japan. Dahil po sila po ang malaki ang experience in terms of earthquakes and how to be resilient. Salamat po.
Thank you very much, Yusek De Leon. And do we have another question coming from our friends from the media? All right. May one, lang, sir. Kasi nagbabanggit na tayo ng figures ng mga mamamatay. At the 30,000 to 50,000 counting, is that at the first instance na kapag nag-earthquake, 50,000 kaagad will lose 50,000 people? Or is this within the entire span of the operations, the emergency itself?
Hindi naman sabay-sabay. But assuming na mag-collapse o matamaan sila, yun yung mamamatay. And how, kung titingnan natin, hiniwalay pa namin yung estimate ng critically injured. Yung critically injured, pwede pang mabuhay yun o pwedeng mamatay, di ba? So, almost immediate within the span of several days. Yun.
So the 50,000 can be a few hours after that.
Importante din na marunong sa drop, cover, and hold at aalamin sa loob ng bawat building, bawat bahay, sa silid nila at nabutan sila doon kung saan ang pinaka-safe. Kaya nga, kung meron kang pagsisilungan sa kanto ng mga bahay or kung may patibay na mesa doon kang papasok para at least meron kang space na kahit madaganan ka, pwede ka pa sigurong ma-rescue. No? Importante din. Kaya nga, meron din tayong mga provision ng mga emergency bag. Kung walang pagkain o tubig, meron kang magagamit. So, importante yung mga basic preparation.
Thank you, sir. And I guess one final thing. Kasi di ba, sir, one of the tinatanong natin, it's not a question of if the occurrence of the earthquake here in Metro Manila, it's not a question of if, but a question of when. So far, no technology has been developed to give us a sort of fortune telling on when will this happen. But I guess I would give the question to Director Bacolcol that can you explain to us yung paano sinasabi that we are nearing that time for that to happen? Is there a mathematical thing for that, sir?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yes.
So along the West Valley Fault, we have dating. Hindi yung dating na you go out with your girlfriend. Carbon-14 dating. Okay, and then the date namin, it's between 400 to 600 years. And the last time it moved was in 1658. And so if we take the lower limit, kasi kung iti-take natin yung upper limit, that will be 200 years from now. So why do we have to prepare for it? So we have to take the lower limit. So the closer we are to that lower limit, the higher the probability that there will be a big one along the West Valley Fault. And 1658 plus 400 years, that would be around 2058. So, pero hindi yan exact na by 2058 magkakaroon. So it could be earlier, or it could be later, or it could be on the upper limit. But we have to prepare for it. Regardless if it's earlier or later, we really have to prepare for it.
2058 yung narinig ko, sir.
Wag nating emphasize yung 2050. Pag isa-subtract mo lang.
That's correct.
Pero ang sinasabi nga ni Dr. Bacolcol, hindi naman sumusunod sa numbers yung fault, kaya nga range, no? Paano kung napaaga at hindi ka handa? Di maaga ka rin pupunta sa langit. No? Hindi naman natin gustong hindi ka handa.
Yeah.
Maganda tayo.
And this highlights the wisdom of conducting these exercises na not just for us in government but also every Filipino citizen na mismo sa mga bahay nila alam nila yung dapat gawin for this kind of emergency. Not thinking of tama ba na ganitong oras darating, but they have to think na kahit anong oras pwede itong mangyari. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, given that there are no more questions from our friends from the media, I'd like to thank everyone, especially our principals here, for joining joining us in this afternoon's press briefing. Patuloy po tayong magtulungan para ating po malagpasan at mapaghandaan ng lahat ng pagsubok dala po ng mga kalamidad sa ating bayan. Maraming salamat po. Magandang hapon sa lahat. Also, to our friends from the media, the functional exercise which is being done right now, you can have photo and video shots inside. So, one of our... Yes,
Being here, participating actively, is a manifestation that you, your LGU, your agency, or organization care so much for our people and our Filipino nation. Consider yourselves lucky to be part of this moment today.
We are proud to share that this automated planning tool for disaster recovery and reconstruction is the first of its kind regionally and globally. Developed by the national government with support from the World Bank, the Plan Smart app aims to help decision makers speed up the disaster rehabilitation and recovery planning process, allocate resources, and ensure resilient recovery in affected communities.
Pasig City is prone to flooding. Marami kasing mababang lugar sa Pasig City. Since ang fault line is dumadaan din sa Pasig City, prone din po siya sa earthquake. Our LGU decided to join the training program because we want to explore yung different available platforms that will help our city formulate our plans efficiently and effectively.
Para sa akin, yung natutunan ko dito sa training is very friendly, user-friendly, effective at efficient. Basta importante lang is yung data is available saka updated para maka-response yung mga part ng sa regions at sa LGU.
For me, hindi naman kasi ako teching person. Pero nung nasubukan ko to, nakuha niya yung attention ko dahil magaling yung mga nagtuturo sa application, paano simulan, paano gawin yung application na to. As of now, nakukuha ko siya unti-unti.
So right now, we are exploring yung mga pwedeng magawa nitong Plan Smart na web-based application. So far, kami ay natutuwa kasi madali naming i-input at na-pag-generate ng mga datas. So real-time output din, no? Hindi na yung ikaw pa mismo yung manual yung nagko-compute. And very comprehensive lahat ng aming datas na nakukuha dito.
Maganda tong Plan Smart kasi dito nakita namin yung mga hazard-prone area ng Caloocan, pati kung saan kami pwedeng maglagay ng strategic location para mapabilis yung response ng Caloocan, ng LGU.
Since mas mabilis na po yung pag-generate ng information and data, mas maikli na po yung waiting time ng ating residents na makuha nila yung assistance from the LGU.
Dahil sa Plan Smart, hindi lang yung city mo yung makikita mo yung kung ano pwedeng mangyari. Kaya mas maganda to kasi may iwasan mo agad at paghahanda kung ano pwedeng maranasan ng kalapit bayan mo sa city mo.
We're very grateful to become part of this movement for disaster resiliency, recovery, and rehabilitation. Opportunities like this, dapat nating i-maximize because not everybody is given the opportunity to learn and particularly to be involved in a program that will prepare us for the difficult times and for the survival of many of us.
Hopefully, you will also reach out to private sector, to civil society organizations, to the development partners like World Bank, and of course, yung mga affected communities. So hopefully, you will use what you have learned here. And yung appeal ko sa inyo kanina, na kung kailangan ng other local government units na hindi pa nakapag-training ng mga facilitators or people who will encourage them to prepare Plan Smart, ready to rebuild local recovery plan, nandyan kayo to help them out.
Please use the Plan Smart Ready to Rebuild app to plan ahead work smarter, and rebuild faster.
The Philippines is no stranger to natural disasters and the destructive impact of climate change. That is why mitigating existing risks, preventing new ones, and strengthening the nation's socio-economic and environmental resilience continue to be top priorities. This is reflected in the updated National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan, or NDRRMP, for 2020 to 2030. One of the key strategies of the plan is to use a science-based approach to risk assessment to improve disaster resilience and climate change adaptiveness. To achieve this, the NDRRMP 2020 to 2030 promotes the use of GeoRisk PH for the latest, most accurate, and efficient risks and hazards assessment. GeoRisk PH is a multi-agency initiative led by the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS. Its goal is to be the country's main source of information for risk assessment and to help the government increase the nation's resilience to natural hazards. There are 3 platforms under GeoRisk PH. Hazard Hunter PH, which shows initial seismic, volcanic, and hydrometeorological hazard assessments for specific locations. GeoAnalytics PH, which performs in-depth analysis and visualization of a locale's potential exposure to natural hazards. And GeoMapper PH, which collects hazard and exposure information to ensure that the database is accurate and timely. GeoRisk PH is a tool that can aid our local government units in the conduct of climate and disaster risk assessment for hazard and risk-informed policymaking and planning, including the local DRRM plan. Through the use of the government's multi-hazard central database system, LGUs can have a more accurate and timely understanding of the hazards and risks within the community. This will help local governments reduce their community's vulnerability and ensure their people's safety. Let's continue working together in building safer, more adaptive, and disaster-resilient Filipino communities. This is PlanSmart Ready to Rebuild, your one-stop web app for faster, more inclusive, and resilient disaster recovery. Disasters set back our community's growth and development, especially when we are unprepared and unsure where to begin the recovery process. While disasters come and go in the blink of an eye, rehabilitation and recovery take years to happen. But what if you can prepare for post-disaster recovery even before it happens? To make this process more efficient, convenient, and effective, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, through the Department of Science and Technology, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, and the Office of Civil Defense, in partnership with the World Bank, developed the PlanSmart Ready to Rebuild app. PlanSmart is an automated planning tool that integrates the various assessment tools of the GeoRisk Philippines platform with a Ready to Rebuild program to streamline the process for users at the local government level. Through PlanSmart, you can determine how many people can be affected by a disaster through accurate information, including hazard assessments and reports. It can also help you identify key stakeholders for rehabilitation and recovery, so you can organize and mobilize them quickly once disasters hit. Moreover, PlanSmart provides a menu of funding sources for various projects, programs, and activities to ensure efficient financing of resilient recovery. It also features a pro forma template of planning documents that consolidate all pre-disaster analyses. This will inform your local government on the best course of action before a typhoon, earthquake, or a volcanic eruption happens. This is also a platform for collaboration, as it can allow you to work with different organizations and institutions. It is envisioned to integrate impact assessment simulations in one system. And the best part? PlanSmart Ready to Rebuild app is free for everyone, anytime, anywhere. With PlanSmart Ready to Rebuild, we are steps closer towards a faster, more inclusive, and more resilient disaster recovery. And all this is finally at your fingertips.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund Guidebook. A guide for requesting parties and the fund administrators. In the second NDRIMC Full Council meeting on June 2021, the Council approved the revised guidelines on the administration of the NDRRM Fund, now known as NDRIMC MC-110, which aims to rationalize projects funded under NDRRMF as a reference manual for all stakeholders involved in NDRRM Fund. The guidebook is essential as to provide clarity and guide to the stakeholders in relation to the implementation of the NDRIMC MC-110. The main purpose of the NDRRM Fund Guidebook is to provide basic information and serve as a guide and manual in the operationalization of the NDRIMC MC-110. Serve as action guide for project proposal prioritization, preparation, processing, and endorsement for possible funding under the NDRRM Fund to ensure effective, efficient, and transparent implementation of the NDRRM Fund guidelines. It will also cover the monitoring and evaluation process for NDRRMF-supported PPAs, and enjoin the participation of CSO for monitoring and evaluation. The target users of the guidebook are categorized into two: the requesting parties and the fund administrators. The requesting parties, such as the NGAs, bureaus, and offices of the national government, including constitutional offices enjoying fiscal autonomy, SUCs, GOCCs, and local government units. The guidebook will provide information and serve as reference for the requesting parties to come up with a viable proposal that is compliant with NDRIMC MC-110. The fund administrators. These are stakeholders involved in the processing, review, evaluation, prioritization, recommendation, and monitoring of proposals to be funded under the NDRRM Fund. These are the OCD Central Office and Regional Offices personnel, national government agencies, members of the regional project validation and evaluation teams in the RDRRMC, and those involved in project implementation monitoring and evaluation such as the CSOs. The guidebook will provide technical know-how and serve as a manual for the review and evaluation of the proposal, and help the fund administrators in coming up with the appropriate recommendation to the Council. The guidebook will contain the usual preliminaries, the messages, acronyms, overview of the NDRRM fund utilization, definition of terms, background and rationale of the guidebook, its purpose, how to use it, and its target users as shown. Also, it will include the legal basis of the NDRRM fund. Who approves the fund requests? Who can submit a fund request? When can requesting parties apply for the NDRRM fund? As well as the menu of projects that they can request for. The guidebook also includes the process flow and requirements for processing of request for NDRRM fund as provided in NDRIMC MC-110. The processes are categorized into three: with PDNA and RRP, without PDNA and RRP, and lastly, for prevention, mitigation, and preparedness projects and programs. Each process differs only in prerequisites, but the processing of the request and the part of OCD are all just the same. For requests for disaster with PDNA and RRP. First is the conduct of the PDNA with indicative timeline of 2 months after the occurrence of the disaster. After that is the crafting of the RRP based on the PDNA report. Also included in this process is the identification of priorities for NDRRM funding. Only those PPAs identified in the RRP with NDRRM fund as funding source will be accommodated for possible funding. For disasters that did not warrant the conduct of PDNA and crafting of RRP, first step is the consolidation and finalization of damage reports and situations reports, as well as the Ardana report. After that is the conduct of desk evaluation. The said reports to come up with short list of priority projects and programs. Next is the site inspection and validation of the shortlisted projects and programs to come up with a final priority list, which will be then endorsed by the RDRRMC, concerned either through a resolution of written letter. For preparedness, prevention, and mitigation related projects and programs, it will be based on the identified priorities of the RDRRMCs. The NDRMC will convene to review such priorities and determine the types of priority PPAs, as well as the budget allocation to support the same. Once determined, the NDRMC will call for submission of proposals from selected priority areas or LGUs. After all the prerequisites are accomplished, the requesting parties will have 6 months to submit the documentary requirements. OCD processing of requests. Once the complete documentary is received, OCD will just conduct further review of the request. If found eligible and with complete documentary requirements, the second step is to endorse it to the Secretary of National Defense as Chairperson NDRMC. Once approved, and signed by the SND or Chairperson NDRMC, the request is transmitted to the Office of the President for approval. To guide the requesting parties and fund administrators, the guidebook will have technical guide notes which will answer commonly asked questions. This will serve as a guide for requesting parties in coming up with the proposal, and for fund administrators in the review and evaluation of the proposal. This will ensure that the proposals received are already in compliance with the MC 110, and that the review and evaluation process will also be done efficiently. As shown are sample technical guide notes for the users of the guidebook. The guidebook will provide information on the monitoring and evaluation, especially the process on the submission of accomplishment reports by implementing offices, as well as the conduct of actual monitoring, as to ensure the timely and efficient implementation of NDRIM fund-supported projects. Lastly, the guidebook will contain annexes and templates such as, but not limited to, general description of menu of projects to guide the requesting parties on what they can request, the prioritization composite index and how to use it, the project review and evaluation checklist, the project proposal form, and other references. And that concludes our presentation of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund Guidebook. Thanks for listening.